Welcome back to CEO Money and Michael Yorba. All right, we've got Ken Lubin. He is the managing director, ZRG Partners, founder, executives, and athletes. All right, Ken, welcome to the show.
Hey, Michael, how are you? And
Good.
great to be on.
I'm glad you're here. There's a lot of synergy between what we do and what you do, but I wanted you to give the audience some background on yourself, talk to them about what ZRG Partners does, and then I got a zillion questions, and let's
Yeah,
start from
no
there.
problem. No, I've been in the executive recruiting or executive search business since 1999. Joined ZRG Partners back in 2002 as really the first employee, and now we're a large global, top 20 global retained executive search firm doing searches all over the world. And I'm based up here in Boston and focused primarily in the financial services business and in a sub niche of that in the commercial lending business. So I do anything with what I like to call specialty money and do searches all over the world.
Okay, let's talk about the kind of people you place so that the audience gets an idea where you work.
Right now I do a lot of stuff in the risk and credit side of roles. I do mostly VP on up type searches, from VP of credit, VP of sales to CEO, chief revenue officers, heads of sales, mostly VP and level type roles on up. It can be director. And, sometimes I'll do some lower level stuff, controllers, finance, heads of finance, but mostly, those types of levels.
Okay. All right. You wanted to talk about thinking outside the box. I want to hear that.
I've been being in the recruiting business for 20 years. When I first started in this business, it was, email was really just, was just becoming a thing. And, fax machines and everything else were the norm. People were faxing resumes or just starting to email resumes back in the late 90s. And nowadays, the recruiting business is all about, using social media and using technology to your advantage. I think, my generation of executive search professionals, we crossed the barrier of, not being afraid to pick up the phone as using, social media and using, tech tools to your advantage. So I think, I'm sort of crossing the barrier from millennials to baby boomers, which is a good thing, but which also can be a challenge as well.
Yeah, a big one in some cases if you're not ready to deal with both sides of that equation, because not too well. I mean, it's more often now they're trying to, but sometimes there's a big gap. It's like a spark plug, right?
It's huge. Oh, definitely. It is. And, it's dealing with different personalities. It's dealing with different ways people do businesses. Startups do recruiting and tell their stories completely different than large banks do.
Yep.
And it's fascinating. And one of the things, I think really what separates us we really help firms tell their story, because a lot of people don't really know how to tell their story, effectively. If you're a startup, if you're a large bank, or if you're a candidate looking for a role. One of the things I focus on is, how do you effectively tell your story the best way possible to, number one, get a company interested in you, and number two, to get, to hire A-level talent. A-level talent wants to work with A-level players, and, lots of organizations can't tell their story and articulate their story the right way.
Ken, it's been my experience that you are actually ground zero for the economy and market sector appreciation. Give me your feeling of where you're seeing the hot spots come and what the hurdles are on hiring and getting hired within those sectors.
I think, I see, in terms of sectors, there's different verticals, right? Financial services right now is fairly strong.
Yep.
I'm in Boston, so life science is a huge, portion of our business, but actually one of our largest groups in our business is, manufacturing and, sort of, old school businesses that are looking to take that next level. Because no matter what company you're in or what industry you're in, you're becoming a tech company, because tech companies are, technology is driving everything. So if you say you're a machine tool shop and you're not a tech company, but you need all technology to drive your CNC machine. So yeah, you're a tech company, right? So, technology is just is so integral and understanding of technology in today's workplace that, if you're not up to date with it, you're sort of, you're sort of out of it.
That's a classic, what you were just saying. Manufacturing and millennial. Very rarely do those two meet. How are you bridging the hurdles in that sector?
I think, look at the classic role that GE's trying to do, right? GE's trying to go through a rebranding of, we're not the light bulb company anymore. We're not, the engine company anymore. We're a technology company. I think they're struggling a little bit with it, but there's lots of other companies that are actually bridging that gap fairly well. You look at sort of, the old school techs of IBMs and HP, right? They're not manufacturing companies, but, if you look at them back in the day, they were just creating equipment. It was high-tech equipment, and, in reality, they were manufacturing companies, and they're even struggling to bridge the gap.
Now, you mentioned earlier in the conversation about using social media to actually bridge the gap, as you just said. Give us some breakdown on that.
One of the things, you can use social media, if you're young or if you're old or any stage in your career, to differentiate yourself. One of the things I did during the recession was, as you can imagine, being a recruiter in the commercial lending business wasn't a very good place to be. And it really focused on building networks. You mentioned, we talked a little bit about executive athletes. I actually run a group on LinkedIn called Executive Athletes that have 20,000 people that are part of it. And now it's, I put on networking events. I put on different types of, sort of thinking out the box, thinking outside of the box type things. It's the passion play because people hire people that are like them. And that's where the Executive Athletes grew. It grew from, there has to be other people out there that are like me, that love to train and race and compete at a high level. And there's got to be fits for other individuals out there for the same thing. Or, if you're going to an organization and you're an artist and the CEO is an artist or a piano player or a sailor, you can find those commonalities. And I think that's one of the things that social media has really helped a lot with, is helping people create sort of their own personal brand, number one. But number two, really find their commonalities and whether or not an organization is going to be a good home for them or not.
Ken, we got to go, but I have more questions. I want to invite you back for another conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Nice to be on.
You too. Ken Lubin, Managing Director, ZRG Partners, zrgpartners.com. You've been listening to CEO Money with Michael Yorba, segment brought to you by Tycon Partners. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again with more great content just for you tomorrow.